Have you ever heard that term, he got up on a soapbox? That's a term from back in the day where, let's say my brother Jim had a message that he wanted to deliver. He couldn't get it on TV. He couldn't get it on the radio. He couldn't get it in the newspaper. Jim might go to a street corner, let's say MacArthur and Broadway in Oakland, or Times Square in New York. He'd put down a soapbox, stand on it, and just have at it. If my wife Catherine and I were walking down the street while Jim was delivering the message, we might become inspired, so inspired that we join his cause. On the other hand, if our son Phil and his fiancee Desi were walking down that same street corner, about an hour later, Jim would be finished and there'd be no sign that anyone ever made a presentation. Now let's fast forward. It's 2023, and I believe that we are living in the golden age of self-expression. And I hope by the end of this presentation, you're not only as excited as I am about this golden age, you're thinking about ways where you can access the golden age and deliver your message far and wide. I'm going to share a few of my ideas, and then I'm also going to share some ideas with some of the people that I've interviewed over the last couple of years on their views on self-expression and how they get their message out. The first person I'd like to introduce you to is Ashley Orlando. Ashley is a coach, a jazz musician, and a joyologist.
What does self-expression mean to you and your way of living?
I think for me, what I have learned throughout the years is that, like, we all have this innate desire to feel seen and heard and understood. I think self-expression for me is being able to bridge that gap between the desire for all those things and actually, feeling seen, heard, and understood. So for me, that often translates in a musical way, being able to share my thoughts, my ideas, my creativity with people through how I arrange a song, or even what selections of songs that I choose, because that can change a performance. It can change a set. Being able and willing to be a little bit goofy sometimes. For example, I am a jazz musician, but I use a kazoo very regularly in my sets. And it definitely takes people off guard because a kazoo is not traditionally a jazz instrument, but I call it my travel trumpet because I use it just like a trumpeter would. I do a version of scatting basically, which is with the vocal improvisation. So I just do that on the kazoo, and it kind of gets people to let their guard down a little bit. But it's a way for me to connect with them as well and to share my own form of creativity and self-expression.
Now, one of my favorite coaches is Darren LaCroix. Darren LaCroix is a former Toastmaster World Champion of public speaking. He runs Stage Time University and helps aspiring speakers get their messages out in an unforgettable way. Well, about 3 years ago, Darren challenged all of his students to do live videos for 77 straight days. We could do Facebook, we could do Instagram, we could do whatever platform we chose, but just deliver a message every day for 77 days. I took him up on it. And for 77 straight days, I talked about everything from family to sports to anything going on in my day-to-day activity. Now, as I'm doing the challenge, I came across another member of Stage Time University, and that was Corey Thomas May. Corey was doing the challenge, and every night you could expect to get a pretty good, well, actually an excellent video from Corey. Well, last week, Corey did a video on Mrs. Claus being the brains behind the whole Santa Claus operation. That was the 1,253rd video that Corey did. Corey has been doing Facebook videos every night for over 3 years. So while I was excited about my 77 days, Corey has knocked this project out of the park. Now, how did I benefit in completing the challenge in 2019? Well, it helped me navigate through all the challenges, or through many of the challenges of the pandemic. For decades, as an outside salesman, I would get in the car every morning, visit customers, shake hands, and make in-person presentations. All of which were some of the most dangerous things you could do, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic. So what I had to do is I had to learn how to do virtual presentations, and I got a head start by doing these videos. And doing these videos, I learned 3 important things. The first one was, we are not only living in the golden age of self-expression, we are living in the golden age of attention deficit disorder. Less is more. If we could take our favorite 15-minute presentation, whittle it down to a concise 12, we are golden. The second thing I learned, if we are looking at our friends and clients in the Zoom box, we are not connecting with our audience with eye contact. The audience connection comes from looking at the camera. And number 3, while I did the challenge on Facebook, there are a multitude of different platforms out there where we can share our ideas. After the challenge, I fell in love with podcasting and just began interviewing people on whatever subject came to my mind. During a series I did on forgiveness, I had the honor and the privilege of interviewing religious leaders from 4 different faiths: a Christian leader, Jewish rabbi, Islamic leader, and a Hindu leader. And I asked them questions about their views on forgiveness and how forgiveness fits in with their faith. And you know, there are so many complicated conflicts with religion sometimes, but the one thing they all seem to agree on is a role of forgiveness. And if we fail to forgive someone who wronged us, there's a good chance we're going to suffer more than the person we didn't forgive. I mean, think about it in our day-to-day lives. We're driving to work. That guy cut me off. I get to work and I'm mad all morning. Well, the person that cut me off, they're just going about their day-to-day activities like nothing happened. I go to a party. Someone says something to me awkward. I'm upset. I can't sleep that night. The person that said the awkward statement They're fine. They're just going about their business. Even when you're walking down the street and somebody's dog makes a mess, they're just going about their day. And I'm holding a grudge. Well, when we choose to forgive someone, we're not saying what they did was okay, but we're freeing ourselves from carrying around the weight of the grudge. That really expanded my mind doing those interviews. After I did the series on forgiveness, I decided to get in what my passion is, and that's sports. We did a series on the great athletes that came out of Oakland, California. Now, many of us have heard about baseball great Rickey Henderson, basketball Hall of Famer Bill Russell. Rickey and Bill Russell are absolute legends in the baseball and basketball Hall of Fame. But there's also people like my friend Griff. Griff and I are the same age. I graduated from Alameda High. Griff graduated from Fremont High in Oakland. Griff was a baseball star. He went on to community college, continued to play baseball. And then when he finished in community college, he was not a prospect for the major leagues. So he served his community for his entire adult life by umpiring youth sports, high school sports, and community college sports. I lost track of Griff over the years, and about 20 years after the last time I saw him, my son was 12 years old, and Griff was behind home plate, calling balls and strikes in Phil's baseball game. We got reacquainted, and he was my first interview on the great athletes that came out of Oakland. I interviewed Michael Wilhite. Michael graduated from Oakland High School, a basketball and baseball star, and also a great student. He went on to Columbia University. You know who else went to Columbia University? New York Yankee great Lou Gehrig. Guess who broke Lou Gehrig's home run record at Columbia University? Well, that would be my friend Michael Wilhite. And then there's Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson was a three-sport athlete at Skyline High School. He went on to Stanford University, where he played in bowl games as a football player. And as a baseball player, the Stanford baseball team won the College World Series 2 years in a row. Brian went on to the San Francisco Giants and hit one of the biggest home runs, the most exciting home runs in San Francisco Giant history. When he hit that home run in 1997, I got to hear broadcaster Ted Robinson describe it. Well, about a year ago, Brian joined me on a Zoom call for the podcast. He described what it was like standing up at the plate and how when he made contact with the ball and it went over the fence, everything got quiet. He could hear his feet hitting the ground while he was running the bases. And how all of a sudden, when he touched home plate, he was hearing the crowd at Candlestick Park in San Francisco going crazy. We've gone on to a series on Negro League Baseball. Negro League Baseball is where African Americans played ball when they were excluded from the major leagues. My guests have been Bob Kendrick, president of the Negro League Baseball Museum, the beautiful Mrs. Geraldine Day, who is the widow of Baseball Hall of Famer Leon Day. Leon Day pitched for the Newark Eagles in the Negro National League in the 1930s and 40s. Next week, I'm going to talk with a woman, a theologian, named Carmen Nanco Fernandez, who has done writings on the events that led up to Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in 1947. So how do we find guests? Do you want to do a podcast? Where are you going to find the guests? Well, start with your friends. I've got some incredibly interesting friends. I talked with Taddei about the work he does, finding jobs for high school kids. I talked with my friend Lisa, who's a relationship coach. She helps executives and CEOs in their business relationships. And then there's Erica. Erica is a political activist. She's a proud liberal who spends most of her days seeking out conservatives to find out how they can find common ground. You think that's needed in today's world? Now, as we do more podcasts, we kind of get on a roll, and then word of mouth comes into play. The more interviews you do, the more referrals you get. Griff referred me to Michael Wilhite. Michael Wilhite referred me to an author named Lee Lowenfish. My Methodist pastor at the church I belong to helped me organize the interviews with the religious leaders that I worked with. And then in this golden age of self-expression, we can find authors. When you read a book and you look at the name of the author, there's a good chance that author is on LinkedIn. And if you write a nice, concise message to that author, there's a good chance they'll talk with you. Same thing for newspaper columnists who have their email address at the bottom of their column. There are guests everywhere who would be willing to talk with you. Now, I spent a lot of time talking about podcasts, but there are a lot of different platforms out there. And I'm going to let my friends Bet and Steve talk about platforms they've used.
Platform expert, go first.
I have been doing yoga on Zoom for a year and a half or however long it's been. And I would have thought that would be the worst thing ever, but actually it's fantastic because I'm late for everything. It's probably, Steve, both of you probably know, I am not good at timing this. So for me to be able to roll out of bed and just jump on a Zoom meeting, don't turn on the video if my hair is all messed up, that is the best day ever. So Zoom has been great for me as a communication platform. We've run amazing events on Zoom. I actually just joined, I mean, it's just like 7 months ago, I joined a global group that talks about world problems, and I can participate in the meetings on Zoom. And I would never be having like coffee with someone from Egypt talking about Myanmar's civil war unless I had Zoom, right? So it's really, really, I think, an impactful company, I guess. And I hate to use the word Zoom, but really, we just all know Zoom is actually
just like
the
you
best.
Google it, you Zoom with people.
Zoom is really it's just better than all the rest of them. So that's been really good. I feel like I've also learned that I can do a lot more asynchronous work, meaning it doesn't have to be real time, right? I can use a document, write up a lot of things, put the specific questions, and then send it over to my coworker. They can then edit it and send it back. We can get a lot more stuff done without having to actually be on a meeting, which is sort of the impetus for my meeting blog, which is like, why do we have meetings?
Well, this is something I could maybe an idea I'd be interested in both of your feedback on. When I started my business, when I graduated my Alexander Technique training school, 2 years ago, my first thought was I have to make a website, because I thought that's what everybody does, is they make a website. And I made a website and I made business cards. But you have to have a website, you have to have business cards.
And a briefcase.
I didn't have a briefcase, but I did have a massage table in a bag that I would carry around. But I was marketing myself. I was giving my business cards out, and I was making some headway, and I was getting things slowly going. And then the pandemic happened and shut everything down, kind of restarted everything. But as I'm starting over with marketing and trying to build my business again, I'm having a realization that I think websites and business cards might be a thing of the early 2000s. And as we get into the 2020s, I feel like they might be starting to be less important. And my latest thought, which I haven't done a whole lot of actually using yet, but I feel like I hear about this and I'm really going to start trying to use it myself, is Instagram, because you can actually keep posting what you're doing throughout the day. So for example, if my band, we just started an Instagram page and we're going to post videos of our practices or little pictures of what we're doing, and then also get engagement, and then you can have followers. That could be the business card, and that's more interesting and engaging than just handing someone your business card.
Now you might be saying, well, that's nice, Steve, but what does that have to do with me? What if I make a video and it's bad? I'm not a tech person. No one wants to hear what I have to say. Well, I'm going to go through those 1, 2, and 3. What if I make a bad video? Well, I guarantee you it gets better. Your message gets more concise. You learn to look at the camera. And that video you thought was really bad, it probably wasn't as bad as you thought. I'm not a tech person. But one of the first things you have to do to get a podcast out is convert an MP4 to an MP3. Now, don't let me explain that to you, or don't ask me to explain that to you. It took me about 6 months to figure it out, and I finally got somebody to help me with it. But I'm not a tech person. But once we learn how to do something, we know how to do it. It's the same with the graphics. It took me a while to get the graphic the right size for Apple iTunes to accept. That one, I decided to send out to somebody, and for a nominal price, an organization called Fiverr made the graphic exactly the way I needed. And then there's the editing. There's editing software. And as we get used to it and kind of go out there and push every button and see what happens, we find out we're not going to break anything, and we learn how to do it. No one wants to hear what I have to say. Well, that's something that I started thinking about. Who wants to hear what I have to say? And I alleviated that by interviewing people. If you listen to one of my podcasts, they're doing more talking than I am. So maybe I think my guests have a lot to say, and I just turn them loose and let them tell their story. What good can come from it? You find your message. You make your message more concise, and you build a reputation. How do we get started? Well, my way of getting started was joining Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters in 2008, just as this golden age of self-expression was getting started. About 5 years ago, Toastmasters updated their educational program, and there's actually a part of the program where they encourage us to write a blog, build a social media presence, build a website, and my favorite, do a podcast. Send your message out on whatever platform you prefer, and like the old Nike slogan. Just do it. What if you told the world about your passion? Is your passion cooking? Could you write a weekly blog on cooking tips? Is your passion photography? Could you build a website with photography tips and some of the work you've done? How about travel? Could you build a social media presence on your travel experiences? It's all out there for you. And if you'd like to talk with me more about it, please email me anytime. I'd love to keep in contact. I'd love to keep this conversation going. And before I leave, I want to tie up all the loose ends. And I'd like to give you a chance to hear my friend Corey May.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 257, Day 1353. Fellow challengers and Challenge Nation, tonight's episode is What's Behind Christmas. By now, everybody's gotten all their presents, I would think, and maybe some of them have been returned. And for those of us who have worked in retail, you have my sympathies because you're dealing with retail hell. But I really want to understand and share this with you. Santa Claus doesn't make Christmas. Behind every great man, there is a greater woman, and that would be Mrs. Santa Claus. And I have to make this abundantly clear that without Mrs. Santa Claus doesn't happen. Santa is the figurehead of all this. The brains behind the operation, the real chief behind everything, Mrs. Santa Claus. She is the logistical support, the brains behind the operation of the greatest supply chain we have ever seen. Pish posh to Amazon and Poshmark, Mercury, Facebook Marketplace. It's Mrs. Claus. Who organizes the list that lets us know who's been naughty or who's been nice? I'm not going to say that Miss. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 257, Day 1353. Fellow challengers and Challenge Nation, tonight's episode is What's Behind Christmas. By now, everybody's gotten all their presents, I would think, and maybe some of them have been returned. And for those of us who have worked in retail, you have my sympathies because you're dealing with retail hell. But I really want to understand and share this with you. Santa Claus doesn't make Christmas. Behind every great man, there is a greater woman, and that would be Mrs. Santa Claus. And I have to make this abundantly clear that without Mrs. Santa Claus doesn't happen. Santa is the figurehead of all this. The brains behind the operation, the real chief behind everything, Mrs. Santa Claus. She is the logistical support, the brains behind the operation of the greatest supply chain we have ever seen. Pish posh to Amazon and Poshmark, Mercury, Facebook Marketplace. It's Mrs. Claus. Who organizes the list that lets us know who's been naughty or who's been nice? I'm not going to say that Mrs. Claus is a gossip or anything, but she's certainly got her ears and eyes everywhere. Let's take that a little bit forward. Who keeps all the elves in line? Who remembers their birthdays, their significant others' birthdays, their anniversaries? Mrs. Claus. It's not Santa Claus. For example, when COVID hit all of us, and we were thinking that there wasn't going to be any Santa Claus or any Christmas, no gifts, Mrs. Claus made that happen. You cannot believe that one guy drops off all those gifts all by himself. Mrs. Claus has got this thing organized. Now, some of those reindeer may be long in the antler. There's a breeding ground. There's a place and an environment. Mrs. Claus takes care of all of that. Now, let's not diminish those things that Santa does. Santa does his role, but it wouldn't happen without Mrs. Claus. Who adjudicates all the human resources concerns? Mrs. Claus. She's fair. Who makes sure that the sleigh is fully gassed up? Make sure that Santa's got all the coffee and substances necessary to stay awake and hit every single house. And if he misses something, who's got the reminder? She is in the control room of the North Pole. You got to think about this, and you got to remember this. Now, I'm also going to say that when you're in charge of the world's greatest supply chain operation, you know, if Santa's ever sick or he may pass away, when you have the control of that kind of supply chain, you can always get another Santa Claus. So these are just a couple of things that I want you to think about as you search for your receipts, as you say thanks for the gifts that you've got, and start your list. You're all working for Santa Claus. Scratch that, Mrs. Santa Claus. Something to think about. And I'm certain some of you are going to say, you know what, Corey? You're right. And I'm going to tell you, I know. That's it for season 4, episode 257, day 1353. Life is rich when you uncover one of the greatest mysteries known to civilization. Fellow challengers and Challenge Nation, make something happen. Leave me a comment if you care to. I appreciate the feedback, and as always, rest easy and may your burdens be light. Good night.
Whether we speak, whether we sing, whether we scribble our ideas on a piece of paper, whether we dance, draw, or doodle, there's a platform out there where we can spread our ideas far and wide. And the best part is, we don't have to ask anyone for permission.